try to bring them in when I'm going over something and going through it and talk to them afterward. This is why we did this. This is why I presented this way. Yes, you're working with a kid the same age as you, but you guys are at work. You're not hanging out. So you need to be professional and keep that in mind when you're out there working a game or practice or any of that kind of stuff.
All right, so Sonia, let me ask you before my kids have to leave. Several of my students, mostly female, are interested in working with professional sports. So tell me, what's the reality of that happening? And so what are some of the steps that they need to do so that they can hear that before they have to leave?
Yeah, definitely. So if they're looking, if they have aspirations of someday working in the NFL, the first step is just doing an internship. I would say over 90% of all the athletic trainers currently in the NFL did an internship at one point before they got their full-time position. So that's the first place to start, is applying for internships. Most NFL teams only take students that are at least in an undergrad athletic training program. I could be wrong, but I don't know of any teams that take on high school students. But yeah, so when you're in an undergraduate athletic training program, that's the time to apply for these internships, usually in the fall, because most teams select their interns for the following year after the previous season is done. So it's good to get those applications in September, October, November, so they're in by the time the season is over, so they can start selecting applicants. And to apply, you just send a cover letter, your resume, and then a list of references, and you just send them in to the head athletic trainer of the respective team you're applying to. And I will say, for those females that are looking to apply, I know more and more teams are taking on female interns. So the number of female interns in the NFL should be going up each year. I did get a chance to meet with Roger Goodell this past February with some of the other NFL athletic trainers. There were a couple issues on our agenda that we wanted to bring to his attention. This is the first time anybody from the athletic trainers group got to meet with Roger Goodell, the commissioner. So we brought to his attention just some issues that we were facing as athletic trainers as a whole. And one of those issues was the underrepresentation of females. So this was an issue that was brought to his attention. I kind of made my case, explained how it definitely works, it can work, and he was definitely supportive. So I think that was, it's definitely very positive. I left that meeting feeling positive about the future of females in the NFL.
All right, so Don, if they want to work at a D1 school, what is your thoughts there?
Pretty similar. I think that you can do some summer internships as well as a high school student. Like we offer high school kids to come in and work for us during the summer to get some more experience during football, conditioning and weight room and stuff like that. Obviously, you have to carry yourself in a very professional manner, not the giggly, giddy stuff that I can't believe I'm in a weight room full of boys, kind of stuff like that. But you should be used to that now because you're around them so much anyways. And basically, in a 4-year institution, you have to earn the right to be at football, and if you're acting the correct way, professional way, and you're putting in the hard work, then you should get your time as that semester at football or with men's basketball or whatever, and then it should be pretty easy to continue doing that in the college profession, afterwards. And then pretty much after you go to grad school, or most of the time you have to go to grad school and get a master's degree anymore. They encourage that for college athletics. So you can kind of pick and choose where you want to go and what sport you get to work in your master's degree in your graduate position. And then you just specifically apply for football or basketball or whatever it may be. Go from there.
All right, so it is actually time for them to go now. So they're going to take off. So
make sure you all get A's and B's. And if you're interested in applying to the Master of Athletic Training program.
And we had a lot of girls today, so that's good. A lot of females.
Yeah. All right, so one of the things that Sarah and I always talk about is I have 3 young boys. You would think, they want to be just like Daddy. Well, the oldest one is 4. If he gets hurt, the first thing he does is go to Mommy. The other one, I just want Mommy. I just want Mommy. So it's easy for me to perceive, well, a female, that she's just going to coddle the baby. Well, no, it's just that she's their source of comfort. But how have you dealt with that thinking, that you are going to be coddling or you're going to be mother-like to those athletes? Sonia?
So this is more, you're saying just like the perception that that females coddle athletes, and this is coming from like coworkers, or I guess where is this coming from?
Well, for me, it would be maybe more, like coworkers or coaches, kind of all honestly, because the athletes may feel that way too. Oh, I'll go to Christina because she'd be more likely to baby me than Robbie. And so that kind of, do you ever see that, anything like that?
I see. I definitely know what you're getting at, but I think that you can easily kind of dispel that image by just, working the athlete's butt off in rehab, and they'll never say that again. Or if coaches see that, they'll be like, okay, she's really tough on them. Maybe I was wrong about that image. So I think it's there, but it's easy to just demonstrate that it's not true at all.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know if there's much else to say. You just can't. You just have to be stern with your actions and show them that you're not going to coddle them, pretty much.
Yeah, Sonia, you pretty much hit it right on the nail. In our training room, my partner is the one that goes out and works with practices, and I stay inside and work with the rehabbers. And I'll have those kids, especially in the high school level, they don't really want to be there. It's kind of maybe daddy wants them to play football. They don't really want to, so they're always, hurt in a way. But I make rehab so difficult and so not fun that they don't want to stay in there. They don't want to come back. Whether it's, okay, maybe they have an injured ankle. Okay, so we're going to do core work until you are like falling over, or, upper body, like just something so that they don't want to come back. And, then like, okay, no. This is not what I thought it was going to be. This is not, I thought you were going to be easy on me. I'm like, nope, it's not easy. But I do think in a sense that, that kind of women's sensitivity thing does benefit sometimes as well, because you get the athletes that are truly injured, and maybe they were the star on the team, but now that they're injured and they can't play, they don't have that same role in the team, and they don't have all the coaches coming to them being like, this, yay, good job, pat on the back and everything, because they're not being able to do anything anymore. So now it's kind of like their loss and their position on the team, and we can help them, just kind of deal with that emotionalness of it, because part of rehab is, keeping their mental state.
I would say 90% of rehab is a solid psychological state.
And so my partner always says, I think more emotionally, and he thinks more, just straight arrow type of stuff. And I'm okay with that, because I will relate to a kid if he's hurting or having problems emotionally, mentally, whatever, and I will help him through that as part of the rehab process.
So one of my good friends, her name is Shelly Mullenix, and Shelly's the Senior Associate Athletic Trainer at LSU. And so I think she's been there for close to 20 years, highly respected in the field, sought after by many college and professional athletic training rooms, as well as coaches, etc. And one of the things that Shelly's taken on is that she's the director of wellness, and I think that she would come out and say, and Jeremy, I'd probably respond to you and say, I'm going to replace the word coddle with, it seems like the female clinician, and you just tapped on this a little bit, Christina, the female clinician is just a better listener. And so now what ends up happening is that you have an athlete that's injured, you have an athlete that's hurt, and is trying to express him or herself psychologically, especially in a very misogynistic gladiator sport like football, where you're not supposed to show any pain, period, end of story. And so now all of a sudden, because this female has this ability to listen, they're able to ask better questions, and they're able to get to the answer faster, and they're able to provide a much better solution. And so I think that perception of, especially in football, where it's like, suck it up and throw some dirt on it, which I never understood how that helped. And I was a football player. I grew up in a football family. My dad was a football coach. I played football for the majority of my life. But there's just certain things that I just don't understand. And so to be able to say, well, you're just going to coddle him. No, I'm going to ask certain questions. And to be honest with you, what I've seen from some females in the sport, and I think it's a real benefit. I think it's a benefit not to have played the sport, because now what ends up happening is that you're not getting caught up in the, I remember when I took a hit like that, or I remember. More than likely you didn't. And so you're not, as a clinician, you're not clouding your thought process and your objectivity with, oh, I remember going through this, right? So you're able to get to the source of the problem much faster in a much more efficient way. So I think along those lines, that idea of saying, well, you're going to coddle them. No, I'm going to listen to them, and they're going to express their emotions. And the other thing, too, is if you look at the sociological interactions between male and female, right? My wife brings this up all the time. Let's say I'm around a bunch of guys, and you walk in and you're sitting down on the couch and it's like, hey, man, how you doing? Fine. Good. What's new? Nothing. Okay. What'd you guys talk about? Nothing. Or as a female, the female interaction, when I see my wife with some of her friends, it's a very in-depth conversation, like hours. They're talking about hours. Whereas the guy, it's like, hey, what's up? Nothing. Hey, did you see John? Yeah. How's he doing? He's doing great. How do you know? Because it's somehow we had that, 2-second interaction, and that was it. So I think there's some sociological factors with female versus male, and I think what it does is that it makes you all a better clinician because you're able to get to the source of the problem better. You're able to ask better questions, right? And I think that's just, and I think to be honest with you, I think as besides Jeremy, the male, soul male representation, I think that there are certain things that we need to learn from females being in sports like football. And watch and observe and see how the interaction plays out.
All right, so I got some questions from the chat room. Can you talk about the interview process, Sonia, of going to D1 and then the NFL, and then Don will ask you the same thing about D1? Because it seems, again, I know you said that because I don't remember her name, was at the Steelers first. You said it was easy for you, but can you just talk about that process to help somebody that may be in that situation right now?
Sure. So you're asking about what the interview process was that I went through for my college and the Steelers position?
Yeah, and then, again, looking at breaking the barriers, females aren't normally here. So what are some of the things that...
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, with the Duke football position, it was a pretty standard, there was a job posting and I applied for it. And then I know I was one of, I think 3 candidates interviewed for the position. And you go through and you meet with some of the other athletic trainers on staff. You meet with the head football coach. You meet with some of the administrative people. I believe I met with the assistant AD as well as somebody underneath him. So yeah, you just meet a whole variety of people that work within the university athletics as well as the football program. So it was a day-long interview. It was very similar with the Steelers. However, I did not actually send in a formal application except for sending in my resume, just because my boss he called up 3 of his former interns that he knew had done a good job as in their internship. So that was my internship was basically the interview process. But yeah, and then when I was called up for the actual interview and came up to Pittsburgh, it was very similar to my the college position interview where, I met with the head coach, I met with the team owner, I met with the strength and conditioning staff as well as the other athletic trainers on staff. But yeah, it was another day-long process. And as in terms of just kind of breaking barriers and stepping into a position where they're not used to having a female on staff before, I mean, I pretty much had to do that when I started with Duke football because they had never had a female on staff before. And I mean, I kind of addressed it already, but really you just have to focus on doing your job well. Because I'm sure there were some coaches that were like, can she really do this job? Does she even know, what the rules are and all this stuff? And really you just kind of really do your job well, and explaining injuries to coaches in football terms goes a long way. Like, coach, like this guy has a high ankle sprain. If he was a lineman, he'd have a much better chance of playing this week, but he's a cornerback and he needs to do a lot more than a lineman does in terms of agility and sprinting full out. And so when you kind of break it down in terms of things that they can relate to and show them that you have an understanding of the sport and the demands for different positions and so forth, I mean, that goes a long way, just doing that.
All right, so Don?
The process is pretty similar for the Division One interview.